Hey, this is Mark A. Altman.
And this is Darren Docterman.
And this is Ashley Miller.
And we are the inglorious
Treksperts. And Santa brought us a present this year. It's Robert Meyer Burnett.
Ooh, I'm back again. I can't believe it. We're into a new year and we're still recording.
Back on the bridge from the observatory. Yeah, I know. It's true. Here we are in the thick of January of 2025, and we are still recording holiday specials. The 2024 holiday specials. So,
yeah,
it's crazy. And you know what's crazy?
Wait, when did we finish 2023?
Recently. This episode is episode 8, but it really should have been episode 007, because today we bring you The Guy Who Loved Me.
Oh,
Top 10 Trek spy stories. No, not The Guy Who Loved Me. I got a few more. Ready?
Okay.
Ready? Here we go. Maybe you can help me out. From Romulus with Love. Dilithium is Forever.
Oh my God.
Gold Press Latinum Finger.
Oh my God.
Live and Let Prosper. No. License to Trill. This was for Rob. Strange New Worlds Are Not Enough.
The man with the golden phaser.
There you go. The man with the golden phaser. Yeah, see, he's getting into the spirit of this.
Yeah.
Anyone? Bueller?
Anyone? Moonraker.
Come on. We're not continuing with this podcast until you volunteer a title.
Moonraker.
Moonraker. That's really funny.
That's a pussy.
Oh, Jesus. Okay, well, you know where Rob's mind is. Okay, well, it's spies like us, but that doesn't fit the thing. So we're doing great Star Trek spy stories, and some of you may think, oh, this is to commemorate the launch of the Paramount Plus TV movie Section 31. It is not. That has nothing to do with anything.
I can't believe you didn't say Casino Royale.
Casino Royale.
Rob the sniper. Boom. Just there he goes. He's fully loaded, ready for action. License to kill there. Casino the Royale. Fantastic.
Good night, everybody.
Yeah, that's great. We have no show left. No show left. But so we're going to be talking about great spy stories. Before we do that, though, I got to say, so this was interesting. Maybe it's not that interesting. I was at Trader Joe's over the weekend, and I'm picking up some stuff for the family. And the cashier and the bagger are talking, and he's like, Rutger Hauer is really great. I'm going to watch it tonight. He says, "Oh, you going to watch the sequel, 2049?" He's, "Oh, I'm going to watch that too. That's great." And they're talking, completely ignoring me, going on about. And I go, "I've seen things you people wouldn't believe." I did the whole monologue, Roy Batty monologue, and they both looked at me like with sincere admiration, and this guy is insane. But at that point, he rang me up and begged and they were so appreciative. And then I said to him, "So, which version are you watching, the theatrical or the director's cut or the final cut tonight?" He goes, "Well, I don't know which one's streaming." I'm like, oh.
You should have started quoting Die Hard and then told him to bag it big time.
Yeah, I could have done that, but I didn't feel like it. I did think they threw me a little Tears in the Rain, which was nice. So anyway, it was crazy. It was a nice little nice little moment between me and my.
Did you buy any doves?
Did I buy any doves? Yeah, I'll throw them out into the yeah. I should have said that's what he should have brought some doves, so at the end of the movie he could let them fly away. So I'm saving them for my big face-off rewatch, my hard-boiled rewatch. But boy, I'll tell you what we did watch this weekend. We watched the Man with No Name trilogy. Oh, those movies are good. I love those movies. I haven't watched them in a long time. Yeah, I haven't watched them in a long time. So a question for you guys. Not that I really am anxious to promote other people's stuff, but now as we get in the new year, people are looking for things to do. Do you guys listen to podcasts? Do you listen to other people's podcasts?
Very.
Are you down with OPP?
Yeah, other people's podcasts. That's really funny.
I do. I listen to all kinds of
like?
things. I watch shows. I mostly watch, I watch the Heretics podcast. Well, the vlog, it's on YouTube, and I watch Rogan, and I watch Trigonometry, and,
Trigonometry? What, is that about math?
Trigonometry.
Oh, trigonometry.
No, it's two British guys talking about political issues. They interview very interesting people.
I thought it was about math, and I'm like, why would you watch that?
No, trigonometry is about horses. Yes. Thank you, actually.
Great minds.
Wow.
Great minds.
I love it. You know what I'm listening to, which is absolutely fantastic? The 99% Invisible Book Club, where they're talking about, they're doing a complete sort of dissection of The Power Broker by fantastic. And it's great because I don't have to worry about my next podcast for another 3 years, because obviously it's going to go on for so long. But these guys are great. And, I don't listen to a lot of other people's podcasts, but I like listening to our podcast, which is the height of hubris, I guess. But
I like listening to the soundtrack show.
Yeah, how's that?
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Good. It's not dry.
Not at all. It's really in depth, and he really exposes it all for you to listen to.
I'll have to check that out. That sounds good. Yeah, I also listened to one called Landslide, which was great, which dropped a couple of months before Jimmy Carter died. It was all about Jimmy Carter and then the campaign against Reagan. It was really, really interesting, really well done. And then
for a second, I thought you said Lancelot, like Lancelot Link.
Lancelot. No, I'm anxious to watch Excalibur again.
Yes.
I watch Excalibur.
Lance Link, Secret Champion. Yeah.
You heard the last of the Mod Squad died?
Yeah.
Yes.
Sad.
That's sad. Remember when that movie came out, the Mod Squad remake with Jordan Ladd, and we were all like, "Oh, This is great." Boy, that was.
I don't remember that.
No one even knows what the Mod Squad is anymore.
I know, right? What are like these shows like Wild Wild West and the Mod Squad? They're like a bunch of these shows that like nobody knows. What do you mean nobody knows? Nobody knows. Like, what are examples of these shows that nobody knows anymore? That
no one's seen Leave It to Beaver anymore.
Yeah, that's true.
Partridge Family, Brady Bunch, I Dream of Jeannie.
I think people still know Brady Bunch.
They probably, because of the
movies. Yeah, but, even there's even people who don't even remember the movies.
But it's like they know because they know Sure Jan.
Right.
That's what they know. They know
all
Brady Bunch.
All we have left are the memes.
Yeah.
I'm so
all
shocked.
All we are is dust in the wind.
Gilligan's Island is not, has gone away. Like, people don't know Gilligan's Island. But that's because it was never remade, even though Darren had a cunning plan to remake it.
Yeah. It was not to be.
Wow. The best laid plans.
I have to tell you, the Warner Archive has been putting out TV shows that I have never heard of in my life.
Really?
Yeah, like The Alaskan. Here's one. Have you heard of The Alaskan starring Roger Moore?
No, I have not.
Uh-huh. It's it ran multiple seasons. It has to do with the Alaskan gold rush, and it stars Roger Moore.
Wow. But Rob, that is another great transition to today's episode. You mentioned Roger Moore, one of the great secret agents of our time.
That's why I was thinking about it, because, it's our, but and then there's another, I was sent a Western called A Man Called Shenandoah.
See, but you teed up our episode and I was going to transition, and then you kept going.
Well,
you got to be.
Actually, the reason being is it's a man who doesn't know who he is. It doesn't. There's a prisoner-esque bent to it, sort of, which is the ultimate spy TV show.
Well, that's another show that people don't really know anymore. The Prisoner, which is terrifying that people don't know because it's so great.
I think there's a very strong cult audience for The Prisoner, right? I like some of these shows, like they suddenly disappeared, but like, they're
all 80. Like, I didn't even watch The Prisoner until, like, I watched it on Laserdisc. Like, I binged it
number 2
when I was sick one with the flu or something, and I watched it.
All the VHS copies of it looked like number 2.
Yeah, I did.
The remastering
is great.
All that ITC stuff is beautiful. Thunderbirds, Space 1999.
Yeah, no, that stuff's great. Well, it's time for us to do Best Space 1999
Deep Space 1999.
That's right.
Deep Space 1999. Oh my God.
It takes place on a station on the moon.
Well, I got to tell people. I mean, I shouldn't tell you this because I'm telling you, taking you backstage where we make the sausage. We're still figuring out what the 10th episode is going to be of this countdown. But wouldn't it be funny if we did the top 10 Space 1999 episodes?
I don't know if there are 10.
Yeah, there are
10.
Maybe.
Okay.
They're all from the first season.
Right. No, that's not true.
No,
it's true. Don't try and tell me Bringers of Wonder
needs to be in it.
No,
Bringers of Wonder.
No.
That's the best of both worlds of Space 1999, Bringers of Wonder.
But Fred Freiberger, he did produce it.
He did. So it does have this little Star Trek tie-in.
You
know what we should do? We should do a Space 1999 Season 2 versus Star Trek Season 3 SmackDown.
Wow.
And see, and only one Fred Freiberger.
Star Trek would win, though.
It would win.
I don't know, man. Hottie shapeshifter.
Yeah, that's a good thought. And Maya's a cool character, and Catherine Schell's great, and she was in Our Majesty's Secret Service, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be good.
Hey, look, it's another segue into the theme of today's episode.
Yes, indeed. So today we're talking about spy movies. You know, Star Trek is so elastic in that it can do many genres. It's an anthology series in a way. This is something that appeals to a lot of the writers. You know, that there's so much flexibility in the premise. You can do war stories, and you can do sub movies, and we've talked about that. You know, they've tried to do murder mysteries, not very well on many occasions. But top 10 Trek murder mysteries. Well, not really. So
no, there's more top 10 Space 1999.
But they've actually been fairly successful with espionage and spy stories. And, you know, there's a multitude of influences. Ashley, what do you think some of the classic spy stories that have influenced Star Trek have been? And why do you think spy and espionage stories have lent themselves so well to Star Trek?
I mean, look, obviously, there are things that come to mind, and I'm like, are they going to be on our list of episodes? But I think that the writers of Star Trek, particularly in the Silver Age of Star Trek, were very influenced by the James Bond films. I think that certainly you can almost point directly to Tinker Tailor's Soldier Spy. In some of these cases, and very John le Carré is going on in Deep Space Nine for sure. A little bit of Len Dayton, who is very concerned with with the goings on in Berlin, which a strong
Len Dayton, of course, was behind the Harry Potter novel. Harry Potter.
Oh my God!
That's almost as good as IUD. Okay, no, that was
people are planting IEDs all over the city. IUDs all over the
Harry Palmer. Ipcris File, Funeral in Berlin.
If that's his original ball, then I'm Harry Palmer.
The Harry Carey films.
You're a spy, Harry.
Oh my God.
150 points to Gryffindor.
But also, you have the coming out of World War II and the Korean War. I mean, there was so many great novels and so many great stories, and even Alistair MacLean, Guns of Navarone. Didn't he write Guns of Navarone? And there's so many. Yeah, Where Eagles Dare. I mean, all that stuff. It's
Ice Station Zebra, the greatest Star Trek film that's not a Star Trek film.
Yep.
I mean, all that stuff.
Star Trek film.
What?
It's so good.
Yeah, I know. You think Master Commander. I think Ice Station Zebra.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I prefer
Ice Station Zebra's dumb.
It's awesome.
It is awesome.
Patrick McGowan is in it. It's awesome.
So?
Which brings us back to The Prisoner.
And I prefer Crimson Tide as a Star Trek film, but that's a whole nother conversation. But remember the guy who wrote, they think they're movies that are better than Star Trek. These guys, they don't even like the Star Trek. Why did they do the podcast?
Because we don't like Star Trek.
We don't like it. We talked about it because we hate
7 years.
That's why we're inglorious.
Call it Suck Trek.
Because we
don't even like the Star Trek. They think they're things that are better than Star Trek. How can they think that way?
How is this possible?
You're really good points. And what Rob, I think you're saying is that, the original Star Trek, it takes place in the height of the Cold War, the 60s. So of course, what was happening in the world, in Berlin in particular, would infuse the writing on Star Trek post World War II. And then of course, in the 90s with Next Gen and Deep Space Nine, it's right after the Berlin Wall has fallen. And all the stuff was coming out about the, Stasi and about the KGB. And so also something that was very much part of the Star Trek DNA, which is why, and I think also, as we'll see, the showrunners of certain shows were huge spy movie fans.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that, I'm sure, as we get into it. Darren, why do you think the spy espionage resonates so much with Star Trek?
Honestly, my honest opinion is I don't think it does. I think they have attempted to do the spy thing and have not been very successful usually, as we'll find out tonight. But I think that they enjoy spy stories more than understanding them and how they are actually unfolded.
You don't really need to listen to this podcast because you can just figure it out by who's talking. If Ashley's talking, he's saying something about Deep Space Nine. If Rob's talking, he's saying something about women and sex.
The women.
and the original. If I'm talking, I'm saying something about myself. And if Darren's talking, he's saying something negative about something.
That's not true.
Even when you do the original series, you're like, well, it's kind of dopey, and I don't know why this happened, but we'll go with it.
It's because I want to not be a fanboy, a mindless fanboy, just saying,
talking about the
isn't
best
this
of the
great?
Best.
Yeah, but I'm saying the best of the best is, it's okay. But that's about
you're
it.
Like Mikey, you don't even like Life cereal.
Yes, I do. I love Life cereal.
Oh, well, there you go.
But
Okay.
I think,
like Cinnamon Life.
you're asking about a genre. And the thing is, the spy genre has inherent action, adventure, intrigue. There's things in that paradigm that are easily translatable to different formats. The same way that you have like chasing after a submarine has that inherent drama to it, as opposed to coming up with, and look, when you have different factions, and whenever Star Trek was delving into dealing with different factions, the idea of wartime spy thrillers, it was a natural. And when, especially Deep Space Nine we're going to talk about like maybe a few in this episode. I mean, there was so many things. You can't not do a war story or a conflict with an adversary and not lean into the spy genre in some way.
Yeah.
And I think you can also take the structural elements of the spy genre and translate that to Star Trek very easily. I mean, you look at almost any episode where our heroes like put on fucking like costumes and beam down to the planet and pretend to be, citizens of that world or whatever, because they're on a mission to do. It's a spy story, kids. Sorry, that's exactly what it is, beat for beat. That's the structure that it's following. It's, it's not about, sort of the Cold War politics of it all, but certainly it's there. But then you look at what makes a spy story a spy story. There's a huge difference between a story that is essentially action driven. And by action, I don't just mean shooting things. I mean a character is infiltrating. They are taking very specific actions, pretending to be one thing or another. The James Bond of it all versus, say, John le Carré, which is more subtle, which is more about the characters who are in that world and how like the morally gray decisions that they make in the context of a larger war or conflict affects them. So the genre itself is fairly broad. I think when the interpretation of it is sort of at its most baroque, when it's trying to be James Bond, then I think, Darren kind of has a point. I think it's less successful because it's harder to do that as a sort of a one-for-one translation from that genre to Star Trek. But when you let Star Trek be Star Trek and you import the things from the genre, from the subgenre that work into Star Trek, then it can be like gangbusters, and you end up with the episodes that we've got on our list tonight.
Well, it's all about the method of storytelling. The method of telling a James Bond story is that you lay out all the things that are happening, and then you go along with James Bond as he finds out what's happening. In a Le Carré story, though, you aren't the audience is not told what's happening, and it's only through our main character that he unveils the leaves of deception that we learn along with the main character what's going on. So it's different ways of telling a spy story that make it more or less successful.
Okay, well, we've done a little dance, and after this commercial break, we're going to get down tonight. So stay
What
tuned.
about the making love?
That's for me to talk about, Ashley.
Oh, okay,
That's for
sorry.
after the show. So, okay. That's right. That's right. Well, Rob will talk about that right after these brief commercial messages. We'll see you in a sec. And we're back. Rob?
Let's make a little love.
Just a tiny,
Just a little love.
a little one. Just like
How much constitutes a little? Extremely little, Lenson.
Well, you practice that ladies first philosophy, Mark, and it all works out in the end.
Okay, so we're about to begin our top 10 countdown of the top 10 Trek spy
The Trek
episodes of all ever. Whatever, it's a mouthful, right? So number 10, Rob, why don't you start us off?
Well, this kind of is a cheat because it's 2 episodes, but it's 2 episodes from the 4th season of Enterprise, at the time Star Trek Enterprise, Affliction and Divergence. Is that what we're talking?
Star Trek, television's most enduring adventure. Enterprise, the first flagship of the Federation. These are her last voyages. These are the final episodes. Friday,
Your ships are now the property of the Klingon Empire.
they've captured a crewman.
Came to get my doctor back.
We need him here.
They've infiltrated the ship.
You endangered every member of this crew.
And soon, they'll have the captain.
And what's really interesting about this is I hate these 2 episodes. I'll tell you why I hate them, because they're designed to do one thing. They're designed to answer in my mind, a fourth wall breaking question. And that's why I don't like them, because the question that these episodes, and I think they're well executed episodes, but this is all about, why do Klingons look the way they look? And it's a question that goes all the way back to Star Trek, the motion picture. And for me, I think they should have let bygones be bygones and just rolled with it. But instead, they wanted to ask this question that fanboys were asking ever since 1979. They did it perfectly in Deep Space Nine, in Trials and Tribulations. Those are Klingons. But we just, it's a long story. Just leave it at that. Just leave it at that. There's no reason, but they decided to not leave it at that. And we get a 2-part episode. And it's actually kind of interesting. So the Enterprise is coming back to Earth, and the Columbia, its sister ship, is about to launch. And they're on Earth, and Dr. Phlox and Tucker is going to be transferred to the Columbia. And on Earth, Sato and Hoshi Sato and Dr. Phlox are attacked in San Francisco, and Dr. Phlox is kidnapped. He's taken away. And Captain Hernandez of the Columbia is dealing with Trip, and there's all kinds of well, who took Phlox? What the hell's going on? We got to go out there and figure out what's happening. And they end up, there's a Rigelian freighter that might not be what it seems. And there's all kinds of spy shenanigans. Clearly something is going on, and we don't know what it is. Where is Dr. Phlox gone? And they have to figure it out. And it turns out that Dr. Phlox is taken to a Klingon colony where a plague basically has broken out, a Klingon plague. And it turns out, lo and behold, spoiler alert, this plague is the result of the augments that Dr. Noonien Sung was playing around with, that genetic Superman, so it goes back to space seed and all this craziness. And this Klingon plague was turning Klingons into
Coconuts.
Augments, basically. Now, some people love this. I don't like it because what it does to me is it creates a physiological condition that I don't believe in. I don't believe that any kind of, I don't care if it's an augment virus, I don't care what it is. I do not believe that the physiology of a Klingon would be changed that much. I just don't. And I always thought, now while the episode is well executed, and then of course the second part is all about what are they going to do, and Dr. Phlox refuses to help the Klingons.
But Rob, isn't the reason this is on our list because it's the episode that reveals Malcolm Reed is part of Section 31?
Okay, I was going to get to that.
Okay.
But that is a small part of the episode, and you do meet an agent. Again, the Section 31 agent who gives Malcolm Reed a secret assignment, and Malcolm Reed seems to know this person. And yes, that is true. Section 31. I mean, to me, this is such a Blender fanboy. I think that season 4 of Enterprise was really good, and it was a lot of fun. But when they overstuffed episodes like this, and they want to refer to Deep Space Nine, and they want to refer to Star Trek the Motion Picture Klingons, and they want to solve all of these problems and throw everything but the kitchen sink in, I think it dilutes what could have been a really interesting, like if I had done this, I would have finally said that there are just different races within the Klingon Empire that we've never met. Yeah. And certainly we have them. There's many different races in the Federation, and it really bothered me. Like I loved in books like John Ford's The Final Reflection when they talk about there's an Imperial.
You almost said
Klingon.
The Final Countdown, didn't you, Rob? I know you did.
Final Reflection, like there's the Imperial Klingon race that's from Kronos, which could have been really interesting. And then they had more humanoid Klingons that they had interacting because they could infiltrate Federation society. They could have done something that was more interesting than create a virus I didn't believe in. However, that said, the episode's a lot of fun. It's action-packed. It's really intriguing. There's some great Klingon characters. We see some actors come back. John Schuck and Eric Pierpoint, who was in who played the Traveler. There is a lot of fun.
Traveler is Eric Menyak.
Eric Menyak.
Oh, pardon me. Eric Pierpoint is not the Traveler. I didn't
He
mean
was
to say
he was an alien nation.
He was an alien.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Eric
Although if
Pierpoint
he had
was
been
not
on
the
it, he would have been
Traveler.
great.
Yes, thank you. The Alien Nation, who I love. I love him.
But
I don't
what's
know why
his
I said
name
the
was
Traveler.
also on Alien Nation, and he was like a freaking Vulcan or some shit on
Gary
Enterprise.
Graham. Yeah.
Gary Graham, thank you.
Yes, that's right. So now we're
No,
getting
it's
it.
like 6 degrees of
I
Alien Nation.
mistakenly talked about the Traveler. I meant to talk about Alien Nation. That's what I wanted to talk about. But yes, and I'm sure Pierpoint was going to say got on the show probably because of Gary Graham. But there's a lot going on. It's a lot of fun. I didn't like the augment virus affecting the Klingons to the point where, their ridges go away and then their ridges come back. I didn't buy it. I didn't
if
buy
they
it.
come back for more than 4 hours.
What's so great about it is when you find out why Spock smiled during the cage.
Because he had gas.
Oh wait, that's not in there.
Don't even start. Yeah.
Let's not even talk about what happened to the Klingons' potato chips.
I'm baiting him.
I mean, it's just it's a bummer though that they don't have to explain everything, and I feel like I felt like this was not their best hour in terms of coming up with a really compelling idea, where it should have been something that was not. They were addressing fanboy concerns and not making something that was really interesting in universe.
By the way,
that's why it's number 10 on our list.
I have to say, I found. A couple of weeks ago on this very podcast, we talked about how Lower Decks decanonized Discovery because of its depiction of the Klingons from Discovery being in an alternate universe. Watching the Discovery people say, that's not what happened. It's still the canon. It's not true. It's like, it's impossible.
We're not saying it is canon. We're saying it should be fired out of a
see
canon.
These people lose their freaking minds over this.
I know.
I mean, it's like
they react exactly the way that they accuse us of reacting when change something in our canon.
That's right, guys. It's not real. It's real, and I know it. By the way, to Rob's point about the Klingons, Lower Decks did for the Orions exactly what you wish that Enterprise had done for the Klingons. They reconciled the animated series Orions with the Orions from the live action series by just saying that the blue Orions were A, stupid, and B, like they called themselves the Orions, and all of their voices sounded like animated series voice acting. It was pretty true.
Oh, that's really funny. I didn't know. I didn't see that. That's really funny.
See that.
That's really funny. Okay, so that was number 10, Affliction and Divergence from Enterprise, which marked Enterprise's entree into the Section 31 mythology. Number 9, Darren, if you'll reveal our pick for the 9th top 10 Trek spy adventure.
I will reveal it, and it is from season 4, episode 24, I believe, from TNG, and it's The Mind's Eye.
Romulan target, Geordi LaForge.
He has no choice but to see what I wish him to see.
They're programming him to sabotage the Federation.
Do not attempt to leave orbit.
You speak as if we are enemies and not allies.
And brainwashing him into a ruthless assassin.
Data, we have a known spy on board. I want you to kill him.
Mind control on an all-new episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation.
And in this story, the eye is Geordi. And his mind has been taken over by the Romulans for some reason. The B story of this episode is not very engaging. However, the A story is not very engaging either. So it balances out. It is an attempt at capturing the mystery of the Manchurian Candidate, and we have Geordi becomes a sleeper agent for the Romulans, and as it turns out, the Klingons as well. There's a faction of the Klingons that are working with the Romulans yet again, like as in Star Trek VI. It doesn't really make much sense, but everyone wants war, and so they're trying to get it.
There's never been a better time.
There's never been a better time to.
What is it good for?
Well, it's good for actually a lot of things, building up the industrial complex and developing industries and
technological development, creating
new technological developments to kill each other. So it actually is a force for progress in humanity.
For good.
But look, it means well. I think it's very sort of front heavy in terms of it sets up a lot in the story. We are with Geordi all the way. He's going to Risa to some conference. I don't know why they would have a conference on Risa. That's probably the worst idea ever.
Nobody's going to the conference.
Yeah, no one's going to the conference. Yeah, they're all getting laid.
Exactly. Maybe
it's like when you do a convention in Vegas. Oh wait, never mind. Vegas, great idea for convention.
It's a great idea. And he is waylaid by a giant Romulan ship, and they do experiments on his visor and on his eyeballs, and it's very scary. And for some reason, they're pumping images into his brain to control him. I don't understand, but obviously it works, and they send him back. But they even send a decoy Geordi to Risa just in case someone thinks that he didn't show up. And it looks nothing like Geordi. It obviously Romulans can't tell the difference between human beings. So it's very weird, the big setup. And so Geordi goes back to the Enterprise like nothing ever happened. And doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Well, it's interesting because this is definitely a case of the writers having watched one of the great movies of all time.
Yeah.
John Frankenheimer's The Manchurian Candidate. Say, let's do The Manchurian Candidate with our characters.
Yeah.
And what's funny is they do it in The Mind's Eye, but then they almost virtually do it again in Generations.
Right, exactly.
Which is so crazy because Generations, it just keeps like repeating things that were done better in the show.
You know what, though? It's pretty weird. Great science fiction, and I'll tell you why. Because it's predicting something that I think at some point will become a problem. As we move towards singularity, as we start talking about the, devices that go from being external, like our phones or our AirPods or whatever, like into implants, like Neuralink or whatever the hell it's going to be. Anytime you have a system that is connected to the internet in any way, you are vulnerable to being hacked. We are maybe.
We'll know when Darren starts saying that was a great episode. I loved it.
Discovery.
I thought it was so smart and really and no notes. That's when you know he's been
on
hacked.
that day. You will realize that I am brain dead and completely unable to judge good from bad.
And look for his blinks, because there'll be Morse code saying "help me."
Like I said, it's very front heavy in that there's a lot of setup and a lot of mystery about what's going to happen, even though there is no mystery. We see what's happening. We see the big reveal of the main baddie planning. Oh, and tomorrow you will kill so and so, and it's rather silly. And the third act, or the fourth act in this case, has no resolution. It basically just ends with Geordi and Deanna talking, and there is no resolution to the story.
Much
and
like
it's
most
really
of our therapy
frustrating
sessions.
Yeah. I found it incredibly unfulfilling.
Rob, are you a fan of The Mind's Eye?
No. I think again, this was when, it feels to me sometimes like with next generation, you wind up sometimes with stories they needed to fill time.
Yeah.
And they're looking out at things like, oh, let's do the Manchurian Candidate. Let's do, without really having, I like the idea of Geordi's, his ocular device and how they play off on that, and how it's sort of perverted for a cause. How technology, I like the idea of that something that helps him, something that benefits him so much can be turned and used against him. I thought that was really interesting. And I thought that there was a kernel of a really great idea, but then the story turns out to be really unfulfilling and pedestrian. And
if only it made him see, strange monsters that he was convinced he needed to kill. Something like that. I don't know.
Well, something that, I understand that there, again, I felt that anytime there was the Romulans involved in anything in Next Generation, they were so, because I love Balance of Terror. And I think that introducing an alien race like they did, when you meet the Romulans in Balance of Terror and the Enterprise incident, they were better than the Klingons in terms of they were more cunning. They were more, call them adult. They were more
complicated,
more
smarter,
scarier, smarter, more dastardly, and they had incredible technology. And I feel that from the time the Romulans came back in the end of first season of TNG and Neutral Zone, we're back. And I'm like, really, guys?
Our shoulder pads.
Even in Unification, there was some really interesting stuff that was going on. I think maybe that was when the Romulans were best, when you got Jolan True, and there was some really interesting stuff, but they didn't cast the right people to play Romulans. Yeah. They didn't look like Romulans. They look like somebody you'd meet at the DMV. And I never liked that about
It's Utopia. The thing that was missing from The Mind's Eye was Leslie Parrish. She's still alive. And, she was the Manchurian Candidate. She's done Star Trek before.
Yeah, she has.
Parrish, would have forgiven her.
She married a writer. Come on.
By the way, I have to say that, for those of you who aren't watching this on video, Rob has the cube with the end of the Shrunken Enterprise from Cat's Paw hanging on his microphone. And it's really disturbing me because I can see DeSalle inside struggling to break free, adding credits to Navy Beans that he could put a dent in it. And it's really distracting me because I'm like, the whole crew has been shrunken down and encased in this lucite block. And I feel terrible for them. And I'm terribly distracted.
I could fit that in the observatory. I couldn't fit the Enterprise.
Man, but it's like you're toying with them. It's just an awful thing you've done to them.
Bastard, Rob.
Yeah, I wish I had the transmuter so I could.
When they made this, they got me.
So great. I didn't buy mine yet. I need to do that.
It's not balanced very well.
Better hurry. It's not balanced for terror.
No.
Oh, Jesus. Okay, that was number 9, The Mind's Eye, which brings us to number 8, and Ashley Edward Miller.
Coming in at number 8 is an episode that we actually like.
Don't speak for Darren. Don't speak so quick.
Two episodes, actually.
It's another two-parter. From season 3 of Deep Space Nine, the 21st and 22nd episodes, Improbable Cause and the Die is Cast.
The attack.
There's an entire fleet decloaking out there.
Open fire
Has just begun.
so much for the Dominion.
The consequences
There's a good chance you won't be coming back from this mission.
are deadly.
You've turned us into sitting ducks for the Jem'Hadar.
Who will survive?
2,000 meters. 500.
The war to end all wars on the next Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
Now, to set the stage a little bit, this was really towards the very beginning of the Dominion War, which got underway in the 3rd season. There was a lot of questions among fans. How serious is DS9 going to be with the storytelling, with all of this? Where is this going to go? Does this mean anything? Is this all going to be bullshit? I remember this very well because this was as we approached the height of the great DS9 B5 Flame Wars on the on Usenet, which I still bear the scars for. But what this episode is basically about is Odo and Garrick teaming up and discovering that the Tal Shiar, the Romulan intelligence service, and the Obsidian Order, the Cardassian intelligence service, are teaming up to launch a surprise attack on the Founders on the other side of the wormhole. Garrick sees it as an opportunity to reconnect with the Obsidian Order. We find out a lot about him, this very simple tailor, and his true history. We are introduced to his mentor, Enabran Tain, who is just an excellent character, who basically offers Garrick the chance to come home, to be forgiven, right? We know from the episode The Wire that Garrick has been suffering in the presence of humans and not being able to do the thing that he feels that he is best at. And they get pulled into this mission to go to the other side of the wormhole and just unleash hell. Unfortunately, the Founders are very, very smart. And the Jem'Hadar are very, very dangerous, and it is a trap. And all hell breaks loose. The attackers are utterly destroyed. But what's most impressive about the episode is how it's truly a story about Garrick and Odo each wanting to go home. There's a very strong emotional through line here. And Andy Robinson is in particular, he is quite excellent in these episodes. There is just a standout scene where Enabran Tain has asked Garrick to interrogate Odo and has given him a piece of technology with the ability to inhibit Odo's shapeshifting, which he uses to torture him. And both of these actors are first of all, they're under pounds and pounds of makeup, and yet the emotion and the conflict that they're bringing to this performance, one versus the other, till Garrick is literally begging Odo to tell him anything. He's begging him, lie to me if you have to, because he's realizing that he is not quite that person that he used to be. There's a great little runner for Sisko, who in Starfleet tradition defies orders, takes the Defiant through the wormhole to try to rescue Odo, and gets commended for it simply by not being demoted. It's just a great episode, and it told everybody who was wondering, is Deep Space Nine serious about this Dominion war shit? That yes, Deep Space Nine is very serious about this Dominion war shit. The Dominion is actually incredibly smart and incredibly dangerous, and they prove it by pitting very smart, dangerous people against them and having the balls to let us lose. It's just a terrific two-parter, and if there was anything that solidified my love for this particular series, it was these two episodes.
Yeah, they're great. And I think we get a real deep dive into the Obsidian Order, which is the spy services of the Cardassians. And who would have thought that Paul Dooley would be so terrific as, Garrick's mentor, because
they
obviously
have their own, Do they have their own badges that are
they don't have
easily identifiable?
Distinctive comm badges. Did you see, by the way, you saw what the actor in Section 31 said in an interview recently?
My God.
Yeah.
I mean, that's awfully candid. Apparently, he's a big Star Trek
Sounds like
fan.
me.
He says, I don't know if people are really going to like it. It's not sort of their idea of Star Trek. I mean, I was like, I admire the honesty. I really respect it, but I got to imagine that the publicists went insane when they read this.
Well, I'm sure he wanted to take his place in the driver's seat of the bus that he will try to drive over the show.
But wow, I mean, look, we haven't seen it yet. It could be great, right?
We haven't seen it. It could be great.
We haven't seen it, so I don't want to cast aspersions on it. I mean, I can say it could be Michelle Wow. Look, we have seen the trailer, but things have been good that have had bad trailers. But
there's few things that have been botched more than Section 31 was when they tried to add it to Discovery.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like you said, membership cards. Hey, those are Section 31 badges. They have headquarters and ships. I mean, has anything been? Here's what I don't understand, Mark. Here's what I don't get. Like, you watch Deep Space Nine, and they handle spycraft in really interesting ways, as we're going to continue to talk about, and changing allegiances and things like that. And the idea of what security or secrecy means is handled fairly well. But when did the great thing about Deep Space Nine, when it's also introduced in this show, in Deep Space Nine, it's one dude. It's one dude that you don't even know if he's telling the truth.
Right.
They can't even get any information out of Starfleet. Is this real?
Mysterious and enigmatic, and
and it was, you don't know. And then they just decided that Section 31 was the CIA. And that kind of defeats the whole purpose of what Section 31 was conceived of. And you're like, did you guys watch these episodes?
Well, did they think they were CIA or the Guardians of the Galaxy?
Right.
Well, but I mean, in terms of when they first started, I guess maybe they did, but they certainly didn't.
You keep walking around telling everybody you're a secret agent, but not to tell anyone else.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a weird, I've never understood that. And the whole, it's because of what Section 31 did that the Discovery had to jump 1,000 years into the future to keep us safe from an AI that they defeated. I'm still pondering this.
Yes.
We need somebody who's better at espionage and spycraft than us to explain that to us. Okay, but you're absolutely right that espionage and spycraft is done incredibly well on Deep Space Nine, which brings us to number 7.
The die is cast with Paul Dooley.
It's cast with Paul Dooley. And we return to Deep Space Nine for number 7, 007 on our list. And of course, we're talking about the return of Thomas Riker. Now, this is a character that was introduced in Next Generation and easily could have been an episode in which Next Gen jumped the shark in Second Chances. Instead, it's a lovely story about Tom Riker feeling out of place and out of time when we learn that due to a transporter accident, him and Will Riker were split into two people.
Right.
Frakes gives a great performance in a dual role. And Deep Space Nine wisely brings this intriguing character back for the episode Defiant.
You once knew him as Commander Riker.
Hope you've got room for the unexpected.
But after stealing Starfleet's most powerful warship...
The Defiant shields are up.
What? Has he become the galaxy's deadliest enemy?
The ship was built to fight.
And will his shocking secret...
It's headed directly into the heart of Cardassian territory.
result in a full-scale invasion?
Fire!
Next time on Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
But the big twist is he's posing as Will Riker because now he's with the Maquis. And he has come to steal the Defiant because he hears rumors, he hears stories that the Obsidian Order is building a super fleet and some really cool bitchin' ships that they're going to use against the Federation. And he wants to expose them, much like Bob Gutton did in the Wounded to the Federation out there in the Badlands. Another great Bruce Springsteen reference.
Thank you.
That's what he listened to. It was a long trip in the Defiant getting to the Badlands. So he's listening
It's
to
a long,
Springsteen.
strange trip.
Yes, exactly. But anyway, so Defiant is a terrific little episode where it sort of becomes Hearts of Darkness, where Cisco and Gul Dukat have to partner to track down Tom Riker and bring him and his band of fugitives to justice. And it's far more interesting than the Maquis Federation conflict in Voyager.
Oh my God! So
and
many
it probably
things
lasted longer than it did in Voyager. So,
how cool would it have been if Tom Riker had replaced our Riker?
Well, they were going to do that.
I think they missed a great opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think, it's interesting because at the time, I remember, look, this is 30-something years ago. I remember asking them about, will we see Tom Riker again? And they said, absolutely. I mean, this is a character with a lot of juice. We can do a lot of cool stuff with. And he's we brought him, he's on our show. We don't have to worry about the movies contradicting anything with Will Riker because it's Tom Riker. We can do anything we want. Yeah. Well, they did anything they wanted. They did nothing with him. After this episode, he was never to be seen again, which is a shame because it's a really cool character. And it's always great to see Frakes. And I get it. He gets to play that character with a little more glint in his eye, in the eye, a little more roguish, a little more.
But actually, I think that the Riker that we have now in Frakes is actually Tom Riker. He's not Will anymore. He's hasn't been Will for a long
and that's why
time.
I hate you.
And it's funny because we found out we've been hanging out with Tom Frakes and not Will and Jonathan Frakes all these years. We were wondering why he was being so nice to us.
Yeah. The thing I think about Tom Riker, the character, and kind of where he would have gone. There's really would have been one thing truly they could have done with him, which is have him
the Emperor of the Galaxy.
No, well, yeah, that's a great idea. Except, well, what if he didn't do that? I think he probably could have ended up occupying the space that Michael Eddington ended up occupying, but I think it was more effective to have Eddington be Eddington.
I think it was cheaper to have Ken Marshall than it was to have Jonathan Frakes.
For sure it was.
My pitch would have been to go into the mirror universe and find both Rikers in that universe and bring them. So now we have four Rikers.
And they all have a minuet.
Yeah. It would have been
great. And they're
great.
like, that's the craziest hot tub party of all time.
7 Rikers, 7 brothers.
It's called a fistful of Rikers.
A fistful of Rikers. I mean, it's not just Brent who can play 19 characters.
Yeah, exactly.
Come on, Frank's could have done it.
In fact, Brent can play a couple Rikers, too.
Rob, are you a fan of Defiant?
I like it. No, I think it's good. I thought it was, again, I thought this was a clever use of that character and bringing him in. And it was done well. And you're watching an alternate Riker, but you're still connected to Riker. And they as Ashley just said, they're the same guy. They just took a divergent path when that transporter accident happened. But, I always thought that the Maquis storyline was much more, it was better. The idea that, you're dealing with annexed areas during a war, and the Maquis could have been a really interesting, you could have, unless they were antagonists, but they had a point, and I think they could have really done some really interesting exploration. And in Voyager, when you remove the Maquis from the situation that they're upset about, as they did in Voyager, there's no reason for them to have any animosity with the Federation. So from its conception, that never worked, but it works great here.
Yeah. And it's great in terms of building up the Cardassians as an even greater antagonist when we learn that the Obsidian Order, is covertly building these super ships.
Yeah.
Super ships.
Super ships, yes, indeed.
Super ships.
Okay, well, that brings us to number 6. And once again, we turn our eyes to you, Mr. Robert Meyer.
Well, this it's very interesting because this also is introducing in a different show the introduction of Section 31. This is an episode called Inquisition.
Go ahead, Doctor. It's only a neurosynaptic relay.
You've been recording my neuroelectric responses.
That's correct. And now I'd like to check the findings in order to confirm what I already believe, that you're an innocent man. Now either you remove the relay or we will. Thank you. This will only take a moment.
Take your time. I don't seem to be going anywhere.
Glad to see your sense of humor is returning. That's a very good sign.
Of what?
You're beginning to relax. We subjected you to high levels of stress to ensure accurate test results. And I'm glad to say the results are in your favor. Your loyalty to the Federation appears to be above reproach.
Why do I still detect a hint of doubt in your voice?
Well, frankly, I would have preferred to have kept you under observation a little longer. Unfortunately, we didn't know about Chief O'Brien's injury, or we would have incorporated that into the program.
So you beamed me out of my quarters into this holosuite when I was asleep.
I believe we allowed you a full hour.
And it was written by Bradley
Inquisition.
Thompson and David Weddle, and it was directed by, interestingly enough, Michael Dorn himself directed this episode. And this is from the 6th season of Deep Space Nine, deep into the Dominion conflict. But Dr. Bashir still, during the time of war, can still go to a medical conference, according to the beginning of this episode. And he's getting ready to go, and then O'Brien has hurt himself kayaking in the holosuite, which I love the idea that you can kayak in the holosuite. Deep Space Nine had it figured out. They had it all dialed in when it came to the whole holosuite. And but anyway, the next day Bashir is getting up, he's packing, he's going to leave for this conference, and everyone is summoned to the ops. And apparently there is a group from Internal Affairs, Starfleet Internal Affairs, the Department of Internal Affairs, led by Bill Sadler as Sloan. And it turns out that Dr. Bashir is now a suspect in being a double agent. And it refers back to other things that have happened in the past during the series. And is he, in fact, a double agent? And what was great about this is they already he was already replaced, so when you're watching this could be, are they pulling another fast one with us on this? Like, there was some credibility there. So you're immediately drawn in. And then what ends up happening is poor Dr. Bashir is taken and subjected to a number of different loyalty tests by Sloan and his people. And it's not looking good. But while all this is going on, we know something's off. There's just something that's not right about what's going on here. And it turns out, and this is a common theme, like what you think is real, whether it was, Shadow Play? The episode with O'Brien, when it turns out he's his double, and the
one we talked about last week.
Shadow Play. And so this becomes one of those episodes. Well, it turns out that this whole thing is a ruse, and Section 31 is not. It is revealed to not be the Department of the Starfleet Internal Investigations Department, Internal Affairs. This is a test. This whole thing has been a test, and to see if Dr. Bashir is truly loyal to the Federation. Sloan shows his deception. It turns out that it's a big holodeck, which becomes a great way in terms of spycraft to use. Mm-hmm. And it's all been a test to test Bashir's loyalty, and he passes with flying colors. And basically Sloan disappears knowing that Bashir is loyal. And when Bashir comes back, like everyone on the Deep Space Nine thought he was at that conference, but he was whisked away by Section 31. He didn't actually go. And then Bashir tells Cisco all about this, and they start doing inquiries into whether Section 31's real or not, because we don't know. This is the first time it's ever come up, and they can't find evidence for or against.
Well, we do have these comm badges.
Which are for sale at Lincoln Enterprises.
but it was, I mean, look, I enjoyed this episode because you don't know really what's going on. You knew something was weird, and then they really made you believe. I really was like, oh my God, are they doing that again to us?
Right.
But then you're like, no, because now you've come to trust. I mean, you can only do that in one series. You can only play that beat once. So they do a good job of playing with the audience's expectations and making us believe, and then making us go, no, because we are on Julian's side. We know it's him, don't we? And then it's this covert group. And of course, it is a lot of people said in Roddenberry's future, do we need a Section 31? And the thing is, I would say, well, yes. Everybody needs, utopia is great. As long as everybody wants to live in the same one.
Right.
It's easy to be a saint in paradise.
That's right. And
one of the major themes of the show.
Absolutely. And that's what Deep Space Nine is all about. How do men of a post-scarcity utopian civilization hold on to their ideals?
But some would rather rule in hell than serve in heaven.
There you go.
But he wasn't a spy. Rob, one of the things people like about the show is obviously we're all quote unquote industry professionals. And so I want to take a moment for you to talk about your experience working with Bill Sadler. You did a picture you produced called Hills Run Red, and Bill was in that. So we might as well share a little nugget about Bill Sadler while we have a second.
Well, I have to tell you, so and he's also in my audio drama, True Noir.
Oh, I'm sorry. Right.
Yeah.
Right,
So when we were making Hills Run Red back in 2008, Dave Parker and I developed this project, and we were going to make a $350,000 low budget indie horror film. I was able to flip it to Warner Brothers, and it became a Silver picture. It became Dark Castle Entertainment, and Joel Silver was our executive producer. And the person that we wanted to play our villain, our maniacal director who was really killing people for his art and getting it on camera, was William Sadler. And it wasn't necessarily just because of Sloan, but it was everything he did. Trespass, The Shawshank Redemption, and
Bill
because
Die
Hard 2,
and Bogus Journey,
Bogus Journey, and because he had been the villain in Die Hard 2, Joel was able to get him for us, and he came to Bulgaria. We shot the movie in Sofia, Bulgaria, where Mark, you've been, and he was there. He was there. His father-in-law was really sick, and he didn't know if he wanted to come. And he did come, and he came to Sofia, and he's like, listen, I knew how much you guys, because how much you wanted me. And we were both staying at this hotel called the Kempinski, and we would sit and talk and have drinks. And he was one of the most delightful people I've met in the entertainment business. He was such a nice guy. And it's interesting because none of these actors understand, because especially character actors, they do so many different things. They don't understand. I mean, they intellectually might get it, but when I was asking him about Sloan and how cool Sloan was and all that, for him that was a recurring character he did a couple of times on Deep Space Nine, but he did things for him, he liked the writing and he liked playing that part. He's a consummate professional. He's a great actor. But it was funny because I was like, hey, you were so cool. And he was like, was I? Like, he doesn't know. Because he comes in. And what people don't understand about actors is especially if they're not part of the principal cast and they come in and they do one show, they come in, they play the part. And remember, they're not in like every scene. And they might have a good part like he has in this episode. He's in a lot of it. But then they leave. And they don't have any inkling that they're going to leave some kind of an impression on the viewership. But certainly they do. And he's a terrific guy. Unfortunately, a couple weeks back, his wife passed away.
Yeah, and our condolences to Bill on the passing of his wife. It's really sad.
I hired him again. He comes back, and I work with him over the past summer. He plays General Dawes. General Dawes was the vice president under Calvin Coolidge, and then he becomes a mover and shaker and power broker in 1932 Chicago. And he plays that character in True Noir, our audio drama. And it was great to work with him again. And it was really great because Bill Smitrovich had never met Bill Sadler. And he was
from Past Tense Part 1 and 2.
It was in Past Tense Part 1 and 2. And so Bill Smitrovich was in the our recording studio here in Los Angeles, and Bill Sadler was in the recording studio in New York City, and they were talking to each other. And Bill Smitrovich told Sadler a story about how he almost got Bob Gunton's part in Shawshank Redemption. Bob Gunton from The Wounded, who played Ben Maxwell. So it's 6 degrees of Star Trek actors. So there you go.
Yeah, that's great, Rob. Thanks for sharing that. That was Inquisition at number 6. And now for number 5, it's Daren Dochterman. The Doctor's back in.
Number 5 is alive with the sound of the original series. And it's our one official entry from that series.
What are your problems with this one, Daren?
I don't have. You are so mean to me. You're so mean.
I'm not mean. I just like you've been so everything's has all these problems. I just want to make sure that it's okay.
No problem. There's no problem. Everything's good.
Excellent.
But our entry into this episode is an episode that I think we have had so far in the holiday specials like 3 times, maybe 4 or 5 times.
I think only for honorary mentions. I don't think it's actually been on a list.
It is arguably the best episode from the 3rd season, the Enterprise Incident.
Mr. Chekhov, there's only one Vulcan aboard that ship. He should be easy enough to locate.
Romulans and Vulcans appear to read almost exactly alike. There is just a slight difference which... Got him, sir.
Feed the coordinates to the transporter room on the double. Have them prepare to beam him aboard on my signal.
Captain Kirk, Mr. Scott is on the intercom for you, sir.
Hey, Scotty.
I've got the device installed, but bless me if I know whether it's going to work. It's the biggest guess I've ever made.
Stand by, Scotty.
Sir, transporter room has the coordinates and is ready for beaming.
Transporter room. Beam Mr. Spock aboard.
Beyond the historic tradition of Vulcan loyalty, there is also the combined Romulan-Vulcan history of obedience to
Transporter room reports Mr. Spock aboard, sir, and the Romulan commander.
The commander?
Aye, sir.
All right. Have them report to the bridge on the double. Mr. Sulu, take us away from the Romulans.
Warp factor 9.
It's certainly my favorite episode from the 3rd season. And it's jam-packed with intrigue and fun and spycraft and stealing of secrets and faking out the opposition and death and rebirth and all that lovely stuff and plastic surgery. It's so much fun to see Bill Shatner really pouring it on as a crazy version of Captain Kirk in the first couple of acts, and he finally comes to clash with Spock in the Romulan brig, and he is killed by the infamous Vulcan death grip. And it's really fun to try and piece together what's going on in this episode, and only being let in on the secret near the end of the episode. And it's really a lot of fun to see specifically Spock dealing with this situation, because he really has the heavy lifting to do in dealing.
And the heavy petting.
I was getting to that. He goes pon far beyond his duty, and it
pon
is
far beyond the stars.
That's right.
Pon further.
He has to go head to head, so to speak, with the commander of the fleet, and she is a very convincing opponent, let's just say. And but she can also shine as a woman, just like Marlena Moreau. It's so much fun.
Shiny.
Spock gets some action and intrigue and some tang in a square glass.
Oh, you mean the drink? My bad.
Yes. Get your head out of the gutter.
I don't know though. I'd like to say that. Do you think he got a little?
I think he did.
In the morning.
I do too. Yeah. I've always believed that he did.
Because,
he was Matahari.
Some speculate that the result of his tryst with the Romulan commander was, in fact, Saavik.
Yeah, that's an interesting theory, isn't it?
Because I like that theory
Vulcan,
a lot.
half Romulan.
Yeah.
And he's obviously a mentor to her. So I love that.
A mentor to her?
I think that's really cool.
That's in my mind canon. So
I agree. I love that.
But, if that's true, and if it's true that on the Genesis planet he got Saavik pregnant.
So maybe let's revisit this.
He is his own grandfather.
I'm my own grandpa.
But I love the fact that Scotty knows exactly how to hook up the stolen cloaking device into the Enterprise, and that it's only just a connector that he bought at Radio.
There it is. There's the criticism. I
It's
was
not
waiting.
criticism.
But he doesn't. It takes him a
He's
while.
a miracle
to get it hooked
worker.
up.
He's great. Yeah.
And they're desperate because they're being chased by those Romulan
You're
ships.
twisting my words into being negative.
And then
I'm
he finally
not being
gets
negative.
it to
I'm
work.
saying I enjoy it.
Okay.
How dare you?
I stand
you don't know
corrected.
me. You don't know what I can do. I love this episode because it's so much fun. And
you learn more in DC.
The music is great, and Sub-Commander Tall is great. I'm not talking about
not
our
the guy
friend
on Twitter.
online, but I'm talking about the character.
We like Sub-Commander Tall online too. But,
sure we do.
But Jack Donner, not Jack. Was Jack Donner? Jack Donner,
yeah.
He was even better. He was no offense to you.
It's the Jack Donner party. So yeah.
Oh my God.
It's interesting.
Fun.
Dorothy Fontana, doesn't love that episode because it was, rewritten pretty heavily. But, the genesis of it is in true spycraft of the era because, of course, it was the Pueblo incident where the North Koreans captured an American ship and held it hostage. It's kind of what happens in the Enterprise incident. Right. And so it was really, this was really like ripped from the headlines.
But it's also the Enigma machine.
Totally.
It's also that there are lots of real life parallels to
like the Crying Game. Oh, I mean the Imitation Game. The Imitation Game.
The Imitation Crying Game.
Yeah. But it's totally different. The crack in the code is totally different.
Lips, those eyes, those hips. Surprise! The Crying Game.
Thank you, Billy Crystal.
I was going to say, it's interesting that, monologues from the Oscars from 30 years ago still resonate. Meanwhile, I don't know if you saw the Golden Globes last night. Nikki Glaser was good, but man, that show was a train wreck.
Yeah.
Well, it's the Golden Globes. I mean, who cares?
It made you miss.
Not since the movie Trainwreck was in the Golden Globes.
Man, I thought it couldn't be any worse than last year because that Kojo or whatever his name was, Kojo, he was so horrible. Nikki Glaser at least was better this year.
I love
much
Nikki
better.
Glaser. I think
I thought she was really good, but the rest of the show was awful. And then they had these great honorary people they were honoring. And then they didn't show them on the show it on the show. Yeah. They said in a separate ceremony, we honored Ted Danson, and it's like, Viola Davis, and it was
how about showing things that we'd like to see?
Yeah, instead we're going to see all this other nonsense that we don't care about for all these movies we don't care about.
Right.
And then the Blockbuster Award for Wicked from Vin Diesel that went on forever. It's about time that we have a blockbuster. No, we're supposed to honor art.
Emily.
You know what honors blockbusters? Box office.
Yeah.
Money.
Yeah. You
don't need to give it an award. This is not Little League. You don't have to give everyone a trophy. So,
but you do. And that
apparently.
proves it.
Anyway, Enterprise is a great episode. Great episode. Isn't it, Rob?
It's one of my, it's always been one of my favorite episodes of the original series. It's got, as I've talked about it on this show before, Sub-Commander Tal is maybe my favorite Romulan of all, other than the Romulan commander, because he seems like he really knows what's going on.
Yeah.
And he's played by Jimmy Doohan in the animated show.
Yeah.
That's right.
It won't work, Kirk.
It's not the same. But also, seeing when this episode first came on and the opening when the Enterprise is surrounded by the
so great
Klingons, the Romulans using Klingon designs, it's so good.
And I love the remastered version where we see the bird of prey graphic on the Romulan Klingons.
Yes. Yeah.
I think it's great. It's something
because isn't it like two Klingon ships and a Romulan bird of prey, which is really cool.
Yep.
And what's great is also it's like putting yourself back in the time of seeing it for the first time. You don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Kirk is acting so out of character, and it's he's taking them into the neutral zone. It's like, is he possessed?
Yeah.
What's going on? You don't know he's on a secret mission for the Federation, which is really, really cool. And Spock's in on it too. And when they do the reveal that he's been surgically altered into into a Romulan, it's so great.
And Scotty's reaction to him is priceless.
Yeah.
It showed up in a little picture book years later in the 70s where they would put little funny, lines in it, like a cartoon, and they had a word balloon for Scotty in that shot saying, "It goes well with your high heels." It's
the original memes.
Yes.
The also, I got to give a shout out to Joanne Linville because she's
she's great.
She's not like I don't think she's a conventional
She's not a mustache
California.
twirler.
No, she's not. But there's something about her voice and the way she looks. She's
Smoky.
both commanding and she's so sexy.
She's very East Coast.
It's very, she's
Has that
East Coast.
mid-Atlantic kind of Romulan.
Yeah. She reminds me of Barry Weiss from the Free Press, who I have a crush on, but she doesn't play for my team. So what can I do? But she's great. I
love this guy.
I dated a girl that looks like her, and I tried to explain. Her name's Jean. We're still friends. Jean, shout out to Jean Mobilia.
Someone you could be friends with. Jean Mobilia. I remember Jean.
Remember Jean? We're still friends. And Jean reminded me of her. And I'll tell you something. A shout out to the fan series. Not James Cawley's, but the other one, Star Trek Continues. They got Joanne Linville's daughter.
Yeah.
To play her again.
Yeah. She looks exactly like
I was like, I really had a heart when I watched the episode. I'm like, wait a minute. And but even cuter. I mean, her daughter was, okay, well, I'll stand down.
Relax.
Calm down, Rob. But Christmas is over.
Maybe you'll come twice this year.
Oh my God.
Karen Walker, I apologize on behalf of the show.
Take it all back.
A Bond reference. It was a Bond reference.
It was a show about spies. There you go. That's all it was. But yeah, it's terrific. Look, I feel much like
young
Dorothy Fontana. It's unfortunate that, she was such a great female captain that, she falls for Spock, and that's her Achilles heel. Like, the reason that they're able to steal the cloaking device is because she, this Mary Sue thing, falls for Spock, and she, suddenly is not this great, smart captain who's on Kirk's level. Like, it would have been better if they hadn't gone there, or if the romance hadn't been the cudgel which they used to steal the cloaking device.
But look,
because
think if it had been reversed. If it had been a pretty Romulan who came to seduce Kirk, Kirk would have fallen for it too.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And it's great when Spock is giving his last rites, he's reciting, stalling for time, right? And then, he gets beamed away just in the nick of time. Yeah. It's a great episode.
But I will say that the frisson between Spock and the Romulan commander, like when they're close up, I'm like, these two would have been hot. I would love to have seen. And of course, since we haven't brought this up lately, I would just like to say that they've used her. Diane Duane wrote an amazing Star Trek novel.
Yeah, she did.
Called My Enemy, My Ally.
Right. Yeah.
And they brought, when we find out the Romulans are really the Rahansu, that's the name of their.
Right.
Wasn't Dreadnought a sequel to that, or am I crazy?
Not to be confused with the Galaxy Quest episode, Mirror Friend, Mirror Foe.
Right.
That's right. Or The Fires of Uranus, Part 1.
Yeah.
Incidentally, I think the tryst between Spock and the Romulan commander happened when she was on the Enterprise being taken to the starbase.
Oh, is that what you think?
Yeah.
After
I have the fan fiction to back it up.
Oh, okay.
Is it fan fiction, though? Is that what it is?
It sure is.
Is that what we're calling it now?
Yeah. You mean after she's betrayed and captured by the Federation?
Yeah.
That's when she decides.
Yeah. Might as well make the trip fun.
I haven't had the fan fiction right here.
That's right.
Yeah.
More
that was the only mistake of that episode. She shouldn't have fallen for it. She should have pulled the double cross.
Yeah, right. I agree. And he still could have gotten away with it.
Yeah, because he's, they're going to kill her. She's going to kill him.
Deception is open only to loyal Romulans.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, I don't know. Okay. Anyway, that's a great episode. Number 5, it's the Enterprise incident, which brings us to number 4. And we're back in the 24th century with Lower Decks.
Captain's log supplemental. We have intercepted a Cardassian report stating that a Bajoran prisoner escaped her captor and was killed in an evacuation pod as she tried to leave Cardassian space. To all Starfleet personnel, this is the captain. It is my sad duty to inform you that a member of the crew Ensign Sito Jaxa has been lost in the line of duty. She was the finest example of a Starfleet officer, and a young woman of remarkable courage and strength of character. Her loss will be deeply felt by all who knew her. Picard out.
And I'm not talking about Ashley's favorite Star Trek series. I'm talking about the classic 7th season episode in which, where Shannon Phil reprises her role. Where Shannon Phil reprises her role from the episode The First Duty and is now stationed aboard the Enterprise, only to really find that she is not treated very well by Captain Picard, who still holds her at arm's length for what happened with Wesley and the Culvert Starburst. I just like saying Culvert Starburst where a cadet was killed.
I drove one of those back in the 90s.
Yeah. And the episode largely follows several of lower deckers. I wonder where that idea eventually blossomed into on the Enterprise. A bartender who works for Guinan, who we've never seen before. It's a shame they didn't plant that earlier, that we hadn't seen him.
Exactly. Yeah.
And several other lower deck officers, of which Shannon Phil's Ensign Sito is one. And she is recruited for a potentially deadly mission across the Cardassian neutral zone because, of course, she's Bajoran, and she has to decide whether she's willing to take on this assignment, which is potentially life-threatening. And she does, and we learn that this is just some tough love from Picard, who's trying to give her a second chance. And it's a really beautiful story and a great espionage story, which doesn't have a particularly happy ending.
No, in fact, it doesn't.
It doesn't have a particularly happy ending, exactly. And it's really moving in a season which was to, I guess, the original Star Trek's 3rd season, the 7th season of Next Gen. It's a very weak season overall, but there are some gems. And perhaps one of the greatest gems in the 7th season of Next Generation is Lower Decks.
Yeah, I'll go along with that. I find it fun. I wish that the casting were better, because a bunch of these characters are not really believable, and they're a bit heavy on the acting.
Well, the guy who works for Guinan is apparently bringing all this information secretly to Picard, or Riker, he overhears conversations, and he's like, but we've never seen him before.
Discount Ben Vereen.
That's the best description. He's like a bargain basement Ben Vereen. He looks like him. He talks like him. That's so
focusing
funny.
on the positive, Shannon Phil is amazing.
Yeah,
she's
amazing.
Love her. Fantastic in this episode. And she's a great character. And, she is, I think she resonates in many ways throughout Star Trek. Frankly, even not to be that guy, but Lower Decks even resonates in Lower Decks.
Oh, really?
Because we find out that Beckett Mariner was at the academy at the same time those guys were. They were a few years ahead of her, and she was close with Sito and just kind of worshipped her. And there are emotional repercussions that even exist inside other Star Trek shows. She was just a great character, so well played. It's sad that she's gone, but I think that the episode wouldn't have had its power if there was some magical reset button that would have allowed her to be saved.
And I'm so grateful. Well, no, you know what? I tried to find her. I've tried to find her a couple of times because I interviewed her back in the day for Cinefantastic, and I've never been able to track her down. I didn't know what happened to her. And then she turns up on Lower Decks. So, she's out there. So I'd like to try
the A-team. If you're out there and listening right now, contact us.
Yeah, I want to track Shannon Phil down because I think she would be great to have on the show, and she was great. I can actually tell you, I remember I interviewed her at the old Mustache Cafe, and we had some delicious Mustache Cafe, and we had some delicious chocolate souffle.
I missed that place.
Romantic. I know, right? The one on Melrose. And I remember that's where I interviewed her. And she was great. She was terrific. And I was hoping she would have a long and successful career because I thought she was she was really good in both episodes. It was so great
to be, Sherry,
that they were able to take her, because she had a pretty small role in First Duty, and then give her a much more substantial role in Lower Decks. And, it's someone that they talked about wanting to bring back in Deep Space Nine. I think it was either Michael Piller or Jerry Taylor who put the kibosh on it, who basically said, no, people in Star Trek need to stay dead because that's such a powerful ending that you don't want to pull the rug out and basically
like
say,
Spock.
and take away the power of that episode by saying, oh no, that she's still alive. And they were absolutely right. As much as we want to see that character again, it's like it would lose the power. Because that is a truly moving ending. That's, a lot of times when somebody dies in Star, it's like, whatever, the guest star died, who cares, right? But that is a very powerful episode. And,
really
and when
is.
she dies, it really has a lot of, it's very powerful and poignant.
Should have been Wesley, but that's okay.
Well, then it wouldn't have been poignant.
On top, Wesley. Yeah, anybody would have been cheering like, "Yay, Wesley's gone! Hi, Wesley, you suck."
Oh, sorry.
You know what? You're going to get a bunch of people who are totally at odds with you. There are a lot of people that love him and think people have been very unnecessarily mean. And I have to say, I'm a huge fan of his in Stand By Me.
Yeah, he's terrific in Stand By Me. 1,000%.
Yeah,
he's great in Stand By Me.
And honestly, I don't
my
blame
other brother, Daryl.
I don't blame him for the bad writing. You can't blame an actor for the bad writing.
No, you can't.
No, so I don't hate Wesley, but I don't get the love.
His character turns into Richard Dreyfuss, so keep that in mind.
Do you know what happens to Wesley in the novels?
Oh God.
Oh God, Rob. I'm sure you'll tell us.
Well, if you read the Coda, the 3-volume Coda
The Death
novels,
of Wesley Crusher,
he becomes a main power player and saves the universe as a traveler.
Great. He's the Star Child.
I could have made
a Wesley Sue.
You know what? I could have made a joke about going to Encinitas Lower Decks, but I didn't.
Wow.
Good for you, Rob.
You just did, though. You just did, though. I mean, yeah, but
you're finally growing up after all these years. Okay, that was number 4, Lower Decks from Star Trek The Next Generation. And we're getting into our top 3 now with Robert Meyer Burnett about to reveal our number 3 pick for the top 10 spy episodes ever.
What is it about spy episodes and 2-parters? This is by far my favorite Star Trek The Next Generation 2-parter. Yeah, Best of Both Worlds, that's fine. But Chain of Command.
But Best of Both Worlds only had one good part.
Yeah, that's right. And Chain of Command parts 1 and 2, both actually quite different episodes, but both telling the same story. They're both amazing episodes.
Top secret orders force Picard to relinquish command.
I want this ship ready for action.
Duty sends him to stop production of the most feared weapon in the galaxy.
Destroy it at any cost.
Beverly, get out of there! But has Starfleet sent him on a suicide mission?
It's a trap.
Come on!
You are preparing for war.
Captain!
We are preparing to defend ourselves.
On Star Trek The Next Generation.
And in it, of course, we meet Ronnie Cox, of course, as Captain Edward Jellicoe. And there is apparently a metagenic weapon that the Cardassians have or possess. And of course, Worf, Dr. Crusher, and Picard are training to go on this mission. And it's actually kind of fun. So we see them training like in the holodeck, and they're in the caves training to do this mission, which I like seeing Dr. Crusher running around with Worf Picard. I think it's great. And then Jellicoe comes on board the Enterprise and he becomes the captain.
Yeah.
And they have to go try and negotiate with the Cardassians because
there's always room for Jellicoe.
It's a wartime situation, and Jellicoe is a wartime captain.
Jellicoe pudding.
And it's an incredible, I mean, what I love about this episode so much, first of all, it has real stakes. And Jellicoe is brought on board because he's dealt with the Cardassians before. And one of the really interesting things about this episode is you see Jellicoe come in and turn the entire Enterprise into a wartime ship. He adds a crew rotation, and he's changing things around, and he's immediately at odds with Riker. And what I really like about this is Riker is actually wrong. And I think that Riker, is pushing back, and they even have a conversation at one point where he says, there's no joy in what you do. And Jellicoe's like, joy in what? I'm not out on some namby-pamby 5-year mission trying to figure out where new planets are, gas giants, whatever. He's a wartime captain. He's come, and even when I watched this the first time, I'm like, why is Riker being this way? Because what Jellicoe was doing was pretty badass.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Riker and Deanna are trying to commiserate because they don't quite understand what Jellicoe's doing. And Jellicoe's right. Yep. He's really good at what he does. And you're watching this guy, and they try and they do things. And then at the same time, they've gone on the secret mission. So you're following Picard, Worf, and Dr. Crusher down on this planet to find this metagenic weapon. And it turns out they've been duped. It was a trap. And while Dr. Crusher and Worf escape, Picard does not.
Right.
And Picard is taken into custody. And in the second episode, it is an amazing, they bring in David Warner. And the thing about this episode is Patrick Stewart told me when I was working on the Next Generation documentaries that David Warner had done, in his mind, the greatest Hamlet he'd ever seen on the British stage. And he was a huge fan of David Warner. And he tells the story about how Rick Berman calls him up and says, yeah, one of your countrymen's going to come on and play a Cardassian. And Patrick Stewart was like, oh, who would that be? And it's
that is the worst Patrick Stewart I've ever heard.
What do you want me to say? So and it was David Warner, and basically you watch these two giants of the Royal Shakespeare Company square off.
Royal Shakespeare Company, yeah.
And David Warner as Gul Madred is torturing Picard, using every tactic in the book, and of course,
including eggs.
Including oil Taspero. The Amnesty International was a big fan of this episode because it showed what it's like, what psychological torture can do and physical torture can do, and watching the two of them, it was some of the most un-Star Trek stuff you've ever seen, but also some of the most compelling acting. Two guys basically planted in chairs, which is, if you're trying to make compelling television, you don't ever want to do that. And
I don't know, man. We always used to say that the best and cheapest special effect was two great actors in a scene together on TV.
Yes, but at least you want to figure out a way where you can do something interesting with. And they did. The set was great. His office was great, and it was all shadowy. And he gets up and monologues around. But it's incredible. And the thing is, Picard, it's like he was going to be broken.
He was broken.
Yeah, I mean, and it's an amazing 2-part episode, but it deals obviously wartime and rendition and prisoners, and it became much more resonant with our Guantanamo Bay later. It's just a terrific episode.
There's a meme floating around, specifically around Christmas time, where they have a view of someone's front lawn with all these Christmas lights set up, and it's behind Gul Madred, and Gul Madred says, "How many lights do you see?"
But I mean, that to this day, if everyone knows what "there are 4 lights" means,
yeah,
and
everyone who is a Star Trek fan.
Yes, nerds do, and it's an amazing episode, and I love the actor that I don't know his name who played the lead Cardassian. He was a great actor too, and that would square off against Ronnie Cox.
Right.
And
he was very good.
He was really good, and I also love watching how Riker and Deanna Troi, like Jellicoe's not sharing his tactics with them. He's just, and like he'll do something and he'll say one thing and run away and accuse the guy, and they're just standing there going, "What do we do?"
And I love Troy keeps trying to talk to him about he has no use for her whatsoever.
Yeah. And he says, "Why don't you put on a uniform?"
He makes her put on a uniform, and she looks great in the uniform, and they kept
she was in a uniform. He gets rid of the fish.
Yeah.
He puts up his kids' art.
Right.
I mean, he basically does more to sell the idea of the importance of family in the next generation than like the ship that was supposed to be filled with freaking families.
Yeah.
I mean, can we just, we've obviously talked a lot about how much we love Jellicoe on this show, but let's just talk about how much we love Jellicoe on the show. He's just a great character. He left the Enterprise better than he found it.
And I love when he tells Picard that at the end.
Yeah.
He says, I think you'll maybe a little better, maybe.
Yeah, and everyone else is like rolling their eyes.
He scared some people away, man. It was good stuff.
Yeah, why are you wearing a uniform, Commander Troy? Yeah. I have to say,
professional.
I'm going to take the Darren role for a second. I love this episode, but why in the world, for a secret mission, do they send this 55-year-old guy who's the captain of their flagship to go on a secret mission where the chance of him returning, it's like, oh, he's been there before. So he can draw a map. That's what the holodeck is for. Do you really need to send this guy? He's got bad knees. Yeah. He probably, can't jump.
He's been captured by the Borg before. He's definitely...
We know how quickly he is to surrender. Right. I think we should send in like special forces or something.
Yeah. Maybe there's a guy from Section 31. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, did you want him to get captured? Was that the idea? So, but it's great.
Picard only made it to Section 30.
Yeah, that was the problem.
Yeah. But it's a great episode, and both, it's very rare that next gen, the A and the B story both work. And this is great because the A story with Jellicoe acclimating to the Enterprise and engaging in diplomacy with the Cardassians, Heist, and then the B story, obviously, which flips with the secret mission and Picard being captured, which ultimately becomes the A story in the second part of it's just terrific. It's terrific. It's a great episode. It's a gift from the late Jerry Taylor to all of us, and
I gotta say,
wonderfully done.
Thomas Riker would have fallen right in.
Yeah. They could have sent him. He would have been good.
Yeah.
He would have been good. Or he would have gone left there and they would have beamed him out and split him into two, and there would have been two Rikers. There would have been three Rikers.
Three Rikers.
My three Rikers. Yeah, exactly.
One Enterprise, one Riker.
Okay. Well, Rob, again, this is a great pick for us. Chain of Command episode. We've sung the praises of it many times. I'm sure we'll sing the praises of it again many times. Terrific episode with some great spycraft. And I wonder if the spy hearts would agree. We'll have to see what the spy hearts have to say about this episode. Because, we like those guys. Cam and
you stepped in it now, bud.
Shit.
Nobody's rescuing you.
Cam and
you can do it.
Cam and his partner in crime.
Robin.
Shut up. Scott and Cam, of course. Come on, guys. How did you not know? How did you not know?
Let me know you get there.
I love that podcast.
Yeah, they're super fun.
And they're great guys, and they did a great job in Vegas. Okay, that brings us to number 2. We're really getting down to it. And maybe you know it, maybe you don't. Ashley Edward Miller does. Tell us what number 2 is.
Number 2, Bill Sadler is back as Sloan from Section 31. In the 16th episode of Season 7 of Deep Space Nine, Inter Arma Enum Silent Legis.
In the shadows of war,
your mission is to gather data about the Romulan leadership.
allies become enemies.
I can't trust anybody.
And espionage turns to murder.
These are not nice people we're dealing with.
But for Dr. Bashir, going undercover...
Remember, this isn't a game.
...is a matter of life.
We have to warn them.
And death.
This can be painful or not. That's up to you, Doctor.
On the next Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
Which, as a spy story...
Oh, wait, hold on. Why is Darren shaking his head? Darren, why are you shaking your head?
Because my pronunciation of the Latin is off, which has no pronunciation.
I took Latin. It's a dead language.
Yeah. It's a dead language. Nobody speaks it.
Dead.
You'll hang from your neck until you're dead.
What does that mean, Ashley? Tell us.
It means that the episode is awesome. What does it mean, Darren?
I have no idea. That's why I'm asking. because it means nothing to me.
Okay,
somebody
I'll tell you.
Find out.
We have the newfangled inter arma enim silent
Chairman
is a Latin phrase that literally means for among arms the laws are silent.
Well, there you go. Okay,
but is more popularly rendered in times of war the law falls silent.
There you go. So, which is pretty much what the episode is about.
So all's fair in war and war.
That's right. It's one of my favorite subgenres of the sort of the spy story milieu, which is the everyman who is caught up in the machinations of powers that are above him. In this case, the everyman is Dr. Bashir, who is approached by Sloan when he's on his way to a medical conference to check in on the health of the head of the Tal Shiar. And what Bashir slowly becomes convinced of is that Sloan is setting Bashir up to help him assassinate the head of the Tal Shiar because he believes that he is anti-Federation and wants to replace him with a more once he gets promoted, and he wants to replace him with a more pro-Federation senator. But as the story unfolds, you begin to realize that the plot is far more complicated than you would have imagined. Bashir is both right and wrong about Sloan's motivations until at the end when Bashir is first captured and tortured by the Tal Shiar, and Sloan is brought before him and tortured by the Tal Shiar. And Sloan tells this story of how there's no Section 31, that he's just a rogue Starfleet officer on a revenge mission. It's all set up to make the original target of Sloan's operation look good, to make the intended replacement look like a traitor for helping Bashir, and embed the person that we believed was going to be assassinated in place inside of the Romulan Empire. And why? Because it turns out that this cat is actually a Starfleet operative who has been placed at the very highest levels of the Romulan government. And what is so great about this episode, once again, is it's the relationship between Bashir and Sloan. Number one, they have just the two actors have great chemistry, and it also it is concerned with the very themes that we have talked about, like, you know, what is the place of a Section 31? You know, what does it mean to be a saint in paradise? How can you be that? Sloan himself, at the very end, tells Bashir, I chose you because you are a man of conscience. And to survive, the Federation needs men of conscience. But the Federation also needs men like me. And it is absolutely brilliant. It is so well structured. It's so well constructed. And, you know, and Alexander Siddig he is terrific in this episode, as always, again, playing the role of the everyman who is caught up in this. It makes Sloan's point, that theme of you need a man of conscience, it makes Bashir's conscience the most important aspect of the story. You see his conscience being played. It is what is good about him that Sloan is using. And the fact that at the end, Sloan can just admit that. Because in a way, what Sloan is saying is, hey, man, I believe in the ideals of the Federation. I really do. I believe in them so much that I am willing to be me and do the things that I know that I can do to keep it safe for you. And there's no contempt that is projected at Bashir, that is projected at the ideals of the Federation. He's not going, oh, well, the Federation is weak. It's none of that shit. He's saying it's important, but I have to exist. And it's just great. Little side note that I just find interesting, you know, however many years later it is, like 30 years later. And this is reality, that 30 years later, we find out that, you know, in real life, that it looks like the head of the intelligence division of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard was actually a Mossad agent, and most of the leadership were also Mossad agents, and they beat feet, after the pager operation, is just it makes DS9 look prophetic, and it's just. I don't know. I just think this episode, the concept of the episode is so cool. It's so well executed. The character work is just terrific. It is vintage Deep Space Nine, and it's a great spy story.
You also see the birth of Battlestar Galactica in that episode. I feel the sophistication of Ron Moore's storytelling, and the lack of simplicity, and the fact that there's this enigmatic stuff. I mean, this when it goes to Barry Jenner and says, we think there's a Section 31, the Admiral, and he's in on it, but he doesn't admit it, and he's part of the whole thing. And it's all of a sudden you realize, well, boy, things aren't as obvious and as simple and as surface as things have been traditionally in the Star Trek universe. It's much more complicated. It's wonderful storytelling, and it's a great episode and great espionage story. And Adrienne Barbeau is in it.
Damn right she is. To your point also about chain of command, right? Why would you pick somebody like Picard to go on that mission? One of the things that's great about this episode is that it makes that question the most important part of the episode. Mm-hmm. Why would you send a Julian Bashir to do this? Well, I'll tell you exactly why. Because he is going to do the things.
Do the right thing.
He's going to do the right thing. He's going to be who he is. And we also know that he's super smart and he's all that other good shit. And he is going to get us where we need to be because of who he is.
He's brilliant.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. That was the original name of the episode. Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing. No, it was not. Okay. Well, that was number 2, Inter Arma Enim Silent Legis. And we are going to reveal our honorary mentions in just a minute. But first, join us for a few commercial messages. And when we'll be back to reveal the honorary mentions and our number 1 pick for the greatest spy episode of Star Trek of all time. Stay tuned. And we're back. We're back, baby. And we're about to reveal our honorary mentions. These are episodes that could or should have been on our list of 10 episodes and that are not consensus picks, but rather individual picks from each of us. So starting with Robert Meyer Burnett, what's your honorary mention for this week?
We've talked about this before, but in terms of going undercover, I think one of my favorite is Errand of Mercy. And I know we've talked about it, but I mean, Kirk and Spock literally, Spock's a trader of Kivas, Trillium, and Kirk goes undercover as Barona Broner.
See, every time you can never bring this up enough so we can sing My Barona.
So, right. but what I really love about this is that they take on these personas, but especially Kirk. He's totally undercover. It's the epitome of spycraft. He's playing somebody else, and he's going mano a mano with Kor. And what's really interesting and what I love about this is the scenes with them together. Good. They're so good. And Kirk, I mean, Shatner's having a ball. But what I love about it is they're sizing each other up and they like each other.
Yeah.
Like
they're equals.
They're equal guys. And
you said this the last time. I don't agree that they like each other. I think they respect each other. I don't think that's the same as liking each other.
Because they're starship captains. So they might be sizing each other up, but you can't not. And I think that's part of it is that Kirk realizes, just like the audience realizes, like, this guy's not so bad. Okay, they're going to use the mind
sister. That's not true, though. He's fighting so hard to stand firm against the Klingons. And
of course.
Because they're capable of tremendous evil. He has totally demonized the Klingons.
Do you really think that after the Organians revealed themselves and both fleets were rendered inert, do you really think that they didn't go out and have a drink together?
Yeah, I don't think they went out and had a drink together. I think they went back to their ships and went their separate ways. Because I think, first of all, he was embarrassed for fighting for war. But the reason he was fighting for war is to him, it was a good war. The Klingons had to be stopped. They were dangerous. They would, he talks about it.
Don't believe.
When he talks to the Organians about why the Klingons are dangerous, he means that. It's speaking with complete conviction. They're death camps. They're all these things that they do that are horrible.
But the beginning, yes, and all that stuff's horrible. But the beginning of having a Klingon on the bridge of the Enterprise D began with Kirk's relationship with his core in that episode.
Because he's always hated Klingons and he always will. He does not like Klingons.
That's bad writing in 6.
The Khitomer Accords were the beginning of having a Klingon on the Enterprise.
It's not.
No, of course it is. Kirk is not a Klingon. All the Klingons, the only one he has like a friendly relationship with, is Koloth, because Koloth doesn't do anything.
He met him after he met Kor.
Yeah.
And he had respect for him.
He met Koloth before. He knew Koloth before because he didn't find Koloth a threat. He thought he was a putz, right? Kang, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Okay? Yeah. That's why him and Kang get along. He does not like Klingons. Captain Kirk does not like Klingons. God.
He doesn't hate them.
Look, I think the idea of Starship Commanders trumps racial hatred.
Yeah. No, I don't think so. Because I think he feels they're genuinely evil. I think he can respect them, but still dislike them.
Thinks the Klingon. I mean, no spacefaring empire. I mean, the Klingons are the Klingons. The Klingons are going to be Klingons. I don't think Kirk. I mean, they made him hate them, and obviously.
In Errand of Mercy, he doesn't care if he has to sacrifice his life to stop them because they're so dangerous to the Federation.
But he realizes his mistake at the end.
No, he realizes
he's also never been
arguing
close
for war.
As Barona, he's never been close
for arguing for war, not that for being jingoistic, not because he feels like, the Klingons aren't so bad all of a sudden. Yeah. Come on.
He's never been up close. He's never been able to examine a Klingon like he is with Kor, and he's getting insight.
I think that first of all, the respect thing for sure. I think that Kirk could look at Kor and think, God damn it. I think he would want to like Kor. The Kor as we understand him in Errand of Mercy, right? But I don't know that he could actually become friends with Kor, because Kor is a true believer, man. He's not like a 9-to-5 villain. He's not like, the Romulan commander in Balance of Terror who's going like, the Praetor will have his war, right? He is not that guy.
He just mind-sifted Spock. By the grace of God,
so if anything, Spock should hate Klingons.
No, he doesn't have emotions. Kirk, and then Spock he was going to put Kirk into the mind sifter next.
Spock has emotions, Captain.
Oh man, I don't know if you're watching the same show I'm watching.
What episode is this again?
Errand of Mercy. Yeah. You may recall we've talked about it 700 times.
Podcast is
8.
We're in 15.
Is this the honorary mentions?
The honorary mention. Okay, so that was Errand of Mercy from Robert Meyer Burnett. That brings us
from
to
Buck Rogers' Errand of Mercy.
That's funny. Maybe that's what we'll do. Top 10 episodes of Buck Rogers. To celebrate it now being in the public domain.
Including the second season.
Okay. Oh, God. Ashley, you have an honorary mention? Love to know what it is.
I am going to pick an episode from the first season of Star Trek, The Next Generation, Conspiracy. Ooh. Man, I just love Conspiracy. I mean, first of all, like just the scene when Picard goes down to that little moon and he's there with those starship captains.
So great.
Violet Scott and Una Karaplides. I don't know who those people are. I believe
Michael Berryman.
Michael Berryman is there, right? And he's looking scary as usual. And he's not looking like he's a cannibal.
They're on a planetoid. They're not even on a planet. They're on like a planetoid. And it's dark and menacing and it's really ominous.
And it has like a tone that felt very different. Like it felt like it was its own thing, right? Like The Next Generation was starting to play around with like some themes and some ideas that set it apart a little bit from the original series, which eventually it didn't. That didn't really happen. That didn't become a thing. But a lot of what made Conspiracy feel just terrific and entertaining are the kinds of things that we got later in Deep Space Nine. I will say that at the end of that episode, first of all, the reveal of, that Remick is one of the bad guys. We've talked about like, hey, it's one of our friends and he's actually like an alien asshole, was great. But the end of that episode where they're sending the signal into space. Yeah. And like, it's just the starfield is getting bigger. I just kind of fell into the. I thought that was awesome and amazing.
Yeah.
I love that
and
episode.
it turns into absolutely nothing.
It turns into nothing.
It's an honorary mention, and you don't need us to agree with you, but I will agree with you and say the first 15 minutes of that episode are as good as Star Trek gets.
Yeah.
And then the rest of it's fun, but the first 15 minutes are great. And also it does exactly what we said Star Trek didn't do later. Those characters of Remick and the Admiral are introduced in Coming of Age a few episodes earlier.
Yep.
So when they come back in Conspiracy, it's really cool.
Yeah.
As opposed to just popping in for an episode. Like they actually planned ahead. Like, and that's why when people knock the first season, the second season,
they're wrong.
Look,
and that's Tracy Torme, right? Like that's Tracy Torme, like bringing something. He was ahead of his time.
I wonder if he wrote in that flying kick that the Admiral did.
I wish we could ask him. I wish he was still around to tell us. I'd call him right now.
I got to tell you guys, like, never ever do a flying kick in a real fight. You will fuck yourself up. I'm just gonna let you know that right now.
Yeah, I think there's no danger of the three of us doing a flying kick, but thank you for the warning.
You're welcome.
Speak for yourself, big guy. Come on. What's up?
Yeah, you're gonna do a flying kick? Okay, I'd like to see that.
Come on, like tell me that, like, since we're all kids, we haven't been practicing that like double foot flying kick and the hammer fist, because we all want to fight like Captain Kirk.
Oh yeah, totally.
Nothing like a phaser set for kill.
Yeah, that's true.
Don't need the flying kick if you got a phaser.
Come in peace. Shoot to kill. Shoot to kill. Shoot to kill.
Yeah, unless Core's your friend. Okay, so
friends like these, who needs enemas?
that brings us to Darren for
Is
his
that just
honorary
Dr.
mention.
Demento, or am I being crazy?
No, that was Dr. Demento.
I was going to say
Where do you think
Dr.
Ashley gets all his
Demento.
jokes from?
That's right.
That was the existential. No, that was Star
Trekking.
Starbucket.
Klingons off the starboard bow, starboard bow, starboard bow. There's Klingons off the starboard bow, starboard bow, sir.
Thank you, Ashley Edward Miller.
Thank you, Ashley. I think we're done now, Ash. You can go. Darren, number 2, your honorary mention.
My honorary mention is, isn't it fun when we discover new spies from new races we've never heard of before? Like the Orions, or in this case, the Orions. In TOS, in Journey to Babel, we have on board a live spy who is an Orion dressed as an Andorian, which is a good trick if you can do it. It's I love this episode because it has layers and layers of interest in it that is not just about a plot against the Federation to spoil the Babel conference. It is not just about a murder on the ship, but it is also a wonderful family story that lets us learn more about Spock and his father and his mother. It's so
Let me tell
great.
you about my mother.
Yeah, right. It's so great that so much information and character development is laid out in this episode, and it is surrounded by an actually interesting story where things are happening and the plot elements intermesh to make a very interesting and compelling story that we are engaged with, and yet in amongst all of this, we get to learn the deep, sordid secrets of Spock's past. And it's really so well done. Jane Wyatt is luminous as Amanda, Spock's mother. And of course, the great Mark Leonard as Sarek, the biggest Vulcan prick of them all. He's so great. He's so great. And
Spock cannot come to school today.
Yeah.
Spock's mother.
Spock's mother.
Amanda Grayson.
It's so, and apparently Amanda Grayson is a relative of Dick Grayson, so Spock is a relative of Robin. So no, that's not true. But it's so much fun, and the fact that there is an actual engaging espionage story going on in it is even better. So I love this episode, and it's so well done.
Yeah, obviously nobody would argue with that. Journey to Babel, one of the greats, obviously. Phenomenal episode. Hadn't really thought of it as a spy episode, but you're right. You know, The Orions are undercover as Andorians, and Reggie Nadler from the Manchurian Candidate is in it as Delov, so it qualifies for sure. Great episode. Okay, well, look, I'm having a tough time because we have 2 TOS episodes, 1 TNG episode, so it complicates things. I was thinking about Second Skin from Deep Space Nine, where they try to convince Major Kira that she was once a Cardassian and who's been altered to look like a Bajoran, and now they want her to come home. But I'm not going to pick that. Because you picked Conspiracy, I'm not going to pick Face of the Enemy, where Troy goes undercover on a Romulan ship, mostly because I think she's great in it. I actually really like that episode, and I think Susanna Thompson's great as the Romulan captain. But the ship just looks like a California pizza kitchen. I hate this. I hate the set. There's, it's not like in the original series. It looks so alien and cool, even with the limited resources they have. And I just hate the Romulan ship. It doesn't feel like a ship, and
it's got a weird color palette.
And a weird color palette that does not feel right
peachy.
At all.
Too peachy.
So I'm going to penalize it. I know they're going to be very upset all these years later that I'm not picking Face of the Enemy as my pick. So much to the surprise of many, I'm going to go with the Voyager episode Workforce, where the crew of the Voyager is abducted, has their memories erased, and only Harry Kim, Chakotay, and the Doctor can rescue the Voyager crew from incarceration as the workers in a planetary system where they've had their minds erased.
Sounds great.
Look at you guys. You look stunned. Come on, we got to spread the love.
Fantastic.
Spread the love. Rob, you're not a fan of Workforce?
No, here's the thing about Workforce. That's another 2-part episode.
Yeah, that's true.
Again,
the paradigm.
I think that there was a lot of stuff in Workforce that I thought was intriguing. I don't think it's a bad episode. I think it's really, and I like the fact that it has scope to it.
Yes.
And I think that it's really an interesting, it's a really interesting episode. No, you know what? No, it's good. I think it's a good choice.
It's fine.
It's a good choice. It's just that they don't really know what they're there for. But it's good. It's a good choice. I like it.
I think so. It could have been Face the Enemy, but I just don't like the sets. Better. I don't like the sets.
Yeah, Workforce has some good sets.
It does. It has some scope. That's what the 2 episodes, that's what obviously Manny Koto took that lesson into season 4. The more episodes you could do, the more money you could spend, the bigger the look. And, not that Star Trek needed a huge budget, but it needed a budget.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so there you go. Those were our honorary picks. Robert Meyer Burnett picked Errand of Mercy from the original series. Great episode. Ashley Miller followed it with the Next Generation episode Conspiracy. Darren followed it up with the great classic from TOS, Journey to Babel. And then I ruined everything by picking Workforce from Star Trek Voyager. So there you have it.
Son of a bitch.
Okay. Now we're about to reveal our number 1 pick in the Kai Who Loved Me Top 10 Countdown.
The Kai Who, oh my God.
Okay. And we turn to none other than Robert Meyer Burnett to reveal our number 1 pick for this week's countdown.
Well, whenever a Star Trek episode opens in an atypical fashion, it's at least going to be entertaining. And you never know quite what you're going to get because the formula has been shattered, so you don't know what's going to happen next. And this episode begins with Captain Sisko giving us his personal log about something that happened 2 weeks prior. And he's trying to come to grips with what happened. Like he flat out tells us that I'm trying to make sense of this. I don't know what I feel about this. I don't know and he's got to sit down and it's a confessional. Really, he's in a confessional. He's going to confess to us.
What we need to do is bring the Romulans into the war on our side. With the combined forces of the Federation, the Klingons, and the Romulans, we can finally go on the offensive.
If you want to guarantee that we obtain evidence of a Dominion plot to attack the Romulans, I suggest that we manufacture that evidence ourselves.
I posted my 14th casualty list this morning. I'm already involved in a very messy, very bloody business. And the only way I can see to end it is to bring the Romulans into the war. I am prepared to do whatever it takes to accomplish that goal. I lied. I cheated. I bribed men to cover the crimes of other men. I am an accessory to murder. But the most damning thing of all, I think I can live with it.
And we find out what happened, and it goes back to the Friday when this begins. This is something Jadzia has lost one of her friends in the Dominion War, and there has been huge casualty reports. And you really get a sense at the beginning of this episode that there's a war that's really being fought, and it is huge, and many people are losing their lives, and this war is horrible, and everyone is having to deal with this. And the Romulans have signed a non-aggression pact with the Dominion. And Sisko realizes if there's a way we could get the Romulans, if we could convince the Romulans that the Dominion pose a threat, that the Dominion are going to come after them eventually, maybe they could get the Romulans to join the war effort. So that becomes the focal point of this episode. And you watch, they have this idea that there's going to be this Romulan Vreenak, this Romulan senator who's going to meet with the Dominion on his way back, is going to stop, and maybe they could do something. Well, Sisko gets Garak, and they come up with a plan. They come up with an unthinkable plan where Sisko, they think they're going to figure out a way to gin up some evidence to show that the Dominion is going to pose a threat to the Romulans and make it happen and convince this senator. Well, Sisko did the right thing in involving Garak, but didn't really think that when you pull the Garak trigger, Sisko didn't really realize just how big the bang is. And Vreenak is assassinated. And things did not go quite the way Sisko thought they were going to go. And at the end of the day, they ginned up evidence and everything that they did, because when you let Garak go, he's going to deliver results, no matter if it compromises your very soul.
It's a fake.
And it's great. That whole thing was great. And at the end of the episode, Sisko is complicit in assassinating a Romulan. And indeed, their ginned up evidence does get the Romulans to join in on the war effort against the Dominion. So they succeeded in saving perhaps billions of lives. But as you go through the episode, you keep seeing it returns back to Sisko giving his confessional. And at the end of the episode, we've seen what's happened, and Sisko we see how it troubles him, and he's trying to convince himself that he can live with it. You know, he's like, I can live with it. But we all know that, no, he can't. It will haunt him for the rest of his days, even though the thing that he did was the correct move in war. Inter armam leges silent, the law falls silent.
Silent leges. I think we've established this.
That's right. The law falls silent.
Again and again. No.
But it truly, and then of course, at the very end, Sisko erases his confessional ship's log or captain's log. And it is a pretty shocking, it deals with spycraft. It deals with duplicity.
Well, he's the emissary. He has nobody to forgive him.
No, he has nobody to forgive him. But it's an incredible episode of Star Trek. Avery Brooks, I think, gives a great performance as Sisko. Andy Robinson has never been better as Garak. And it's so great because what did you think was going to happen when you called me? Like you wanted, and I knew I knew you couldn't, if you wouldn't have been able to do what needed to be done, which is why you called me in the first place. And it's a classic wartime John le Carré. It is the very best example of a classic spy story. And it also deals with the compromises even the best men have to make in times of war.
Hey, audience. I want to speak to you directly. I know this has been on the top of our list a million times, but probably as many times almost as City on the Edge of Forever. Probably sick of hearing about this episode. But you know what? It's so good. And if, a lot of you probably haven't watched Deep Space Nine. You don't know it. You hear us talking about it. Even if you've never watched Deep Space Nine, go watch it. And you'll understand why we have so much love for this episode and why it keeps showing up on our stinking list, because it's great. It is great. It is just a sensational episode. And you talk about the le carré of it all. And obviously there was a movie I used to love when I was growing up as a kid. It was called The Man Who Never Was. It was about, the officer, they planned the fake plans for the Normandy invasion for D-Day on. And this reminded me of that movie. And it wouldn't surprise me if Ira was thinking about it when they wrote this, but, I love it. It's great. It's obviously our best espionage, because there are unintended consequences of even the best of intentions once you engage in this kind of subterfuge and espionage and spycraft. And it's just brilliantly written. And the ethical and moral dilemmas that Sisko are wrestling with are fantastic. And again, I'm repeating things we've probably said 100 times, so I apologize.
Don't apologize. I'm glad you said the thing about telling people that, sometimes there are episodes that just come up again and again because that's how effing good they are. This is one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Fan-freaking-tastic. So that was our number one pick. Yeah. It was In the Pale Moonlight, the story of the Joker and Bruce Wayne. No, it's the story of Sisko wrestling with one of the great moral dilemmas of his career. Fantastic. I hope you agree. And if you don't, well, you're wrong, because it is the best. It is the number one best espionage episode in the history of Star Trek, and just really a miraculous, spectacular episode. And for those of you who are wondering why our man Bashir isn't there, which was featured in our holodeck episode, it's not a spy episode.
Right.
It's not
a parody
actual.
episode.
It's a parody of spycraft and espionage, and we love it dearly. But it's not.
It's not
Star
real.
Trek. It's not real. There are really no stakes, even though I think the space station is going to be erased. The computers are going to be erased or destroyed if they don't stop Dr. Noah. But it's not a spy episode. It's just a great, great episode. It's a great holodeck episode. So anyway.
So that's why.
That's why.
So stop your emails now.
Yeah.
Before they start. And speaking of which, I want to remind you, Saturday, January 18th, live on YouTube, it's the Trek Talks to benefit the Hollywood Food Coalition, hosted by Star Trek prodigies Bonnie Gordon and Star Trek Enterprise Dr. Phlox himself, John Billingsley. This is a contractual commitment we made for not having John Billingsley on the show. So I just want to mention this, and you should check it out. It's for a great cause, and we give it a gold star. The Treksperts endorse it. We believe in it, and we encourage you to check it out. That's trektalks.net, and I believe also hosted by many familiar people like Laurie Ulster from Trek Movie, and the Sci-Fi Sisters will be there, and I'm sure it'll be terrific, and you'll enjoy it. If you want to hear John Billingsley talk some more, Trek it out. Trek it out. And I want to remind you, of course, that Inglorious Treksperts Briefing Group, and Deck 78 are all part of the Treksperts Podcast Network. Copyright 2025 by Treksperts Plus. Executive producers are Mark A. Altman, Darren Docterman, and Ashley Edward Miller. The show is produced by Peter Holmstrom and Brian Mix. Original music by Joe Kramer, video editing by Brian Mix. And you can open hailing frequencies by emailing us at trekspertsplus@gmail.com, or find us on all major social channels, including Instagram, Facebook, Threads, Twitter, and now at Blue Sky at Inglorious Trek and Inglorious Treksperts. You can also subscribe to Inglorious Treksperts and Deck 78 on Spotify at Treksperts Plus, or follow us on YouTube. And that's about it. So once again, a big thank you to Robert Meyer Burnett for joining us here on The Big Show.
Thanks for having me.
No, thanks. Only 2 more episodes left. Can you believe it?
No. I think there's going to be more somehow.
Somehow. We'll do it.
Make it stop. Make it stop. 2 more episodes.
There
episode
are
9.
2 episodes left.
Yeah, episode 9 and episode 10, where we'll complete the countdown for 2024, and then we'll be back to our regular shows after that.
It's important to stay regular.
It's important, Maritn. So again, a big thank you to Rob Burnett, who you can join daily on the Burnettwork on YouTube. And all of us will see you next Thursday here on the Treksperts. So on behalf of Robert, Ashley, Darren, and myself, Mark Altman, keep on trekking ingloriously, of course.